Social protection systems, they clearly play an important role in protecting populations from poverty and from income shocks. Advanced countries clearly have very developed systems, very strong systems, but they're under pressures, and they're under pressures on a number of fronts. Just two of those. First, pressures related to aging. Aging populations are putting upward pressures on pensions and health spending, and these are creating fiscal pressures over the medium term. Countries clearly need to consider how to contain those pressures, but at the same time without undermining the core objectives of which these programs were put in place for. Another challenge they face in the context of technological developments and globalization is that the traditional relationship and contract between workers and firms is much more temporary, and you also have an increase in self-employment. These create specific challenges for social protection systems that will have to be grappled with. In developing countries, on the other hand, they face very different challenges. Most of these countries have very rudimentary social protection systems. The challenge they face is actually how to strengthen those systems, create the fiscal space to finance those systems, but at the same time not crowd out crucial expenditure on things like health and education, which are really important for inclusive growth over the medium term. I think one important lesson from the discussion so far is that a range of policy instruments exist to help countries strengthen their social protection systems. So I think we can be optimistic on that front. Important choices have to be made, and countries will make very different choices depending on their social preferences and also on their constraints like administrative constraints and fiscal constraints. So on that front, a lot of optimism. However, another important lesson is that some hard choices have to be made. Countries may make very different choices reflecting their circumstances, but they need to make them, and they include things like the balance between taxation and spending, the choice between different spending priorities. These have to be made. They involve some very difficult choices. So these choices should reflect social preferences, which involves consultation with broader stakeholder groups to make sure that the choices that are made are sustainable over the medium term, politically and from a public economy point of view. Economists have a very important role to play in this in terms of informing that debate. This is very important that we enter that debate, we engage with the different groups, pointing out the important trade-offs that have to be made. But the cost of waiting is also high. Choices have to be made, and sometimes they have to be made quickly so that we make those choices by design and it's not forced upon us by default. So an important contribution of these types of workshops is to hear many different views, bring many different stakeholders together to see what are the different options on how to strengthen social protection systems. Hopefully, it will also lead to some process of convergence about the way forward. It's also important to recognize that the process does not stop here. It's really important that we broaden the engagement with different stakeholders and we hear their views and consult as we move forward. Definitely for us at the IMF, this workshop, these types of engagements energize us as we consider what is our role in helping countries strengthen their social protection systems.